Okay, hi everybody, my name is Kate, you already know that. I work as monetization manager at MY.GAMES, the department called franchise. For those who are not from MY.GAMES, this is something like central product management, global operations, whatever. What I do is consulting products within MY.GAMES on monetization, metagame development, game economy, all of that. Today I'm talking about LiveOps monetization. What is that? How not to be scared, how not to get lost, whatever. Let's go. So what is LiveOps monetization in general? First of all, that is complicated. It is a mix of systems. It is a mix of tools. When you're building a game, you're building monetization during the development time, but then the real work starts when you launch the game. Then you scale monetization, then you improve that, and basically LiveOps monetization includes a mix of cross-department communications. You need marketing to work with you need publishing to work with you need game designers, you need developers, you need everybody to make it work. It must be data-driven. You must have heard about the data-driven approaches lots of times, but data is not enough, and I will explain you why. Also, all of us, when we're developing games, we're looking at other products, but whatever Fortnite doesn't mean that you must do that as well. You have your product, and you're in charge of that. And the most important thing about LiveOps monetization is that is an endless journey. That means that if you're having plans for next year, next 3 years, if you know exactly what you want to do, if you have ambitious dreams of how you want to scale your product, you're doing it right. If you don't, I'll help you out how to do this right. So we have 3 pillars of LiveOps monetization. This is system, data, and strategy. System is what your game is. This is what you have built during development. This is all the mechanics you have for retention. This is your metagame. This is your core gameplay. This is something you can base the monetization on, and you will break this system. Your game will change. In 3 years, you might not recognize that at all, but you need the system to start from something. Data is what helps you out on the road. This is your roadmap. This is what helps you understand what's going on with your product. Data will never tell you what to do. That's not true. But data will tell you how to do whatever you're doing better. And then you have to have a plan. That's simple. I mean, imagine you are in a dark room, you have no idea where to go. You need to choose a direction, you need to turn out the lights, and your plan will be changing. You will know that you are wrong or right, you will change direction rapidly when something goes awry, but you need to have a plan to know where you're going and to know where you can turn. So we'll start from the system. This is how any game looks. Basically, any game has art, design, narrative, and tech. In any intersections between these systems, you will find player, fantasy, and games hook. It doesn't relate to any concrete genre or any concrete platform. Any game has that. And you need to acknowledge the intersections between these systems. But where's monetization? Monetization is upon all this. You never can build monetization in vacuum. Your monetization must be connected to all the systems, all the mediums of this quad factor you have in the game. Basically, your monetization, when you're building it, should be connected with the design. It should be supported by art and narrative. It should be supported by tech using different tools. So what you do with the system when you go LiveOps, first thing, you recognize all the connections between these 4 elements, between design, art, narrative, and tech. You recognize whatever main economy driver or metagame systems you have in your game. Also, you utilize this to build monetization, which means that you have any progression system, which gives you retention, which gives you your players the reason to play more, the reason to log into the game in a month, in 2 months, in a year. That's the motivation, that's the engagement. Use that within the monetization system. Propose your players something they want to have, see how they progress through the game, see how they unlock content, and use that to create a value proposition which appears beautifully to your players. Also, what you need to build during LiveOps, first, any missing connections between the core elements. Usually we don't have enough time to develop the game. We feature cut, we push ourselves towards the release, we do all this stuff, and that's painful for everybody who develops games. So plan how you can build these missing connections, plan how you can introduce them later on during the LiveOps. And if you already feel fine with all the connections between the 4 elements in monetization, then build new systems. Build more systems to create more connections, build more systems to make the meta stronger, build more systems to expand the monetization. Now we're going to data. So data, again, 3 pillars. I love pillars. You will love them as well. Prioritization, KPIs, and risks. Cohortization is simple. You need to know your players. You have no idea who they are. There are millions. You cannot know any of them personally because there are millions. So what we're trying to do here, we're trying to recognize the patterns. We're trying to somehow divide them onto tangible chunks we can work with, and we can build hypotheses around how to monetize on them and how to make them happy. KPIs are simple as hell. You need to manage and basically see if your business model is working, right? How you do that, you have metrics and you have data, and this is why you need data. And risks, well, everything can go wrong, everything will go wrong, you will be scared, so risk management is something that helps you out not to go mad, basically, and not to kill yourself in the process. Cohorts, so first of all, they're tangible, this is something you can touch within your game, and this is something you need for analyzing the audience, for utilizing differences between your players. Somebody plays a lot, somebody doesn't. Somebody likes to play once a week, and somebody likes to play every day. Somebody likes to play 5 battles in your shooter game, and somebody likes to play 100 of them during the day. Somebody likes to pay a lot, somebody doesn't like to pay at all. Somebody likes your progression, and somebody doesn't care about your narrative. These are the groups of your players. When you have the data, then you can look at that and see the similarities. This is how you basically create different cohorts. Then, what you can do with them, you can use them for any offers, events, or whatever we do during the LiveOps to, again, target specific audience. Also, you can use that to adjust the content plan. If you know that your game has, for some reason, lots of people who have watched Game of Thrones, okay, let's do a collaboration with them. This will sell. Why the categories and actually what they are? So again, subsets of your audience based on data. The most important thing is that this is a framework, this is a tool for communication. Like, if we don't have cohorts, your marketing says, we're gonna buy 1 million players, acquire them to the game, and they will play. Or we're gonna target these particular players within the community, and any marketing manager will explain to you what these people are, how they think about these people. When you have cohorts, your game designers are saying, okay, we know that this, and that defines the cohort, and we're targeting these people during the event, and your marketing know exactly how to target these people because you speak the same language. This is why cohorts are important. When we're talking about using the data, there are, well, 2 main things. First, you need to be fair. Like, we all can do dirty monetization. I can do this, but for a lot of money. But I would not, honestly, unless I'm offered $1 million, I suppose. So you can play dirty. Sometimes it will work. Bad advice, but it will work on mobile more than on PC and console, especially on hyper-casual and casual mobile still, but it's changing. So if you want to play dirty, if you have a goal to earn a lot of money fast and then drop the audience, you can do that, but be fair with yourself and be fair with your players. If you don't want to make a lot of money quickly, but you want to have a loyal audience and keep making money over the years, then you need to be fair with your players. You know how they play, and you don't need to try to trick them. Whatever you do, if you put different prices in the shop, you will be on Reddit in a day. And they will know, and they will calculate that, and they will have a spreadsheet saying that you are unfair, and they will beat you in Twitter. This is what they will do, and they will churn from the game, and they will ruin your company image. So please don't do that. And also, important thing, I'm mostly talking about game as a service here, so you need to build an inclusive product. People are different. We're trying to cohortize them, etc. But what you need to try to achieve is making a product where your player feels that you care specifically about them. Their needs, how they play, what they want. Whenever you go to a really cool clothing store, you see a consultant, for example, or whenever you see a clothing brand marketing campaign, you can feel, oh, Jesus, this is exactly what I wanted. This is the dress I was thinking about for years. And this is how you feel that you have a connection with the brand. Same thing here. We're trying to create free-to-play games. We're trying to create game as a service. Game as a service means that your game is part of your player's life. They need to want to integrate this game within their lifestyles. They need to know that you care, and this is how you make them trust you. And this is a framework for cohortization I usually use. So you have 3 axes, meaning that whatever cohort you're building, you always will have at least one trigger or variable from any of these actions. So one of them is progression. This is everything they do in your game. This is your leveling systems, your gaming economy, this is how your players unlock the content, this is the retention, this is the content consumption, and all the gameplay metrics you track. Why you need that? Because you need to know what they're doing, because, well, you need to know what they want. For example, Clash Royale, I had them, but what they do, they track the cards I use in my deck most of the times. Whenever they want to give me a really unfair offer to make me get rid of all the soft currency I have acquired over the years, they propose me exactly an upgrade of the card I use the most. Because they know that I like it, they know that I want this, and they know that this is the hook I might like. Then we have payments. Easy, we're doing monetization, we need to know how our players pay. ARPU and RPPU are simple metrics. Also, we're looking at every check per purchase, for example. Why we do that? For example, we have a person who is comfortable of spending $10 for a single purchase in the game we're making each month, but we want them to spend 20. What we can do, we can give them an offer with a really good value proposition, which will be pleasant to them. We're not trying to just make them spend more money. We're giving them an opportunity to try spending more money, to try investing in the game, and try feeling good about it. We also can use that for tracking non-paying users, people who have churned from monetization and returning them back. And then we have activity, which is mostly usable for events. Why so? Because, well, you have people playing your game. For example, you have battles. And if you're planning a progression event and you know that everybody plays 5 battles a day, this is how you balance the event. If you know that they play 20 battles a day, this is how you balance the event. If you're targeting people who plays 100 battles a day with this event, you're balancing it in a different way. So whenever you're trying to make cohorts, use these 3, they will help. This one is complicated, basically for everybody who is not within monetization or producing or game design. These are really hardcore metrics a bit, so if you get lost, find me after the talk. I will explain everything to you because I don't have time right now. But what this slide is telling you is that we have 3 main metrics we use in any business model. This is monthly active users, percentage of paying users, and RPPU, which is an average revenue per paying user. These are connected. If you want to have a high RPPU, what you can do is put extremely high prices in the shop. If your shop doesn't have anything cheaper than $30, then yes, revenue per paying users will be at least higher than $30, but obviously less people will convert because they don't want to pay $30 for anything, and you will have a really low number of conversions. If your prices are lower, you will have lower RPPU, but you will have higher conversions. If you don't have monthly active users at all, nobody's playing, nobody's paying, and you're doomed. So what you need to acknowledge with this triangle here is that it is a balancing act. You have a business model, you have your particular product, you know your weak spots, you know your good spots, and you know that, okay, we don't have high quality items, so we cannot be Valorant, we cannot put really expensive skins within the game. Then okay, we'll aim for higher conversions, the stable ones, and then we will try to upscale the RPPU. The general strategy I would propose to you guys is first optimize the MAU, make sure that you have people actually playing the game and liking that, optimize the retention, then try to have a stable player base of paying users. Maybe they're not paying a lot, but at least make sure that they're paying every month. And they keep paying, and they do this regularly. And then, when you have loyal people who are loyal enough to keep playing, who are loyal enough to keep paying, upscale the revenue, upscale the RPPU, using offers and using events. Risks. So everything will go wrong. You will be panicking as a person who likes to panic, and as a really anxious person. I mean, my therapist told me so. I have a bit of experience with risk management. So first of all, you have the player fantasy. This is the most important thing in your game. Whatever you're doing, you have the player fantasy. If you start to think from numbers, if you're starting to think from whatever, art, whatever that is, player fantasy is the core because this is what your player is facing. This is what your player is feeling. This is how they play the game. This is what you want to deliver to them. And also you have the business model because we're making money here. So you need to find the big spots. Again, you have an art team and you are unsure that your artist will be able to produce a lot of content if you want to scale monetization and have more in the server. This is a big spot, right? Hire more artists. Plan to hire more artists. Maybe you have a feeling that your upgrades in the game are not tangible enough, that nobody will feel it, that players will not upgrade because when they do that, when they spend resources on that or they spend money to upgrade quicker, they don't feel anything. That's not valuable. Okay. Test it. So first of all, review all the systems in your game, whatever design you have. Find the risks. The risks are we're not able to produce content, or we don't have tangible upgrades, or our skins are not beautiful enough, whatever. Find the risks, prioritize them. For example, if we have a whole economy system based on upgrades, and we have a fear that upgrades won't work, probably we need to test that. Because if that doesn't work, our whole economy is doomed, and we're not able to monetize at all. Something like 1% of our players might not like customization is a risk, but not that big enough, right? So also define how to test that and define the raw numbers. For some products, conversion numbers about like 7% are good. For some product, we're aiming at 4 at the start, and then we scale. It really depends on what you're making, and it really depends on the goals you have within the game. And then, when you know what testing your design means, when you know how your metrics work, that's important as well. I mean, any gaming company has a different way of calculating the metrics. For example, we're calculating something based on the months. Is that a calendar month? Is that 4 weeks, like 28 days? From what point we're counting that, how we're counting that? No idea. Depends on the company. So whenever you're building these systems, with your analytics people, talk to them and make sure that you know how this is calculated. Because if you think that you're using calendar months and you're using 28 days, then you will make decisions based on this data, and that won't be true. And one more important thing, don't make hasty decisions, which means, like, everybody knows that we need to test retention early on, right? But what if we are building a complicated system? We have several progression systems intertwined with each other, and all of them must work together to establish short-term, mid-term, and long-term retention. Before you have all of them in place, you won't be able to test your retention. You will get something, but if you start rapidly changing your meta game before having all the systems in place and test it, you will be just making another game without testing the one you were making before. Same with monetization. You have the shop, okay, you have the UI, but you don't have the content. If you launch your shop with different content than what you're planning to have in your game, how can you test if that actually sells? You cannot. So please define what testing your design means. Define what is bad, what is good. Don't be scared. It's okay if something goes wrong. Catch it earlier on, and you will be fine. The plan. This one may look like a chart showing a behavior of a player in the game. Like, they come to the game and they leave the game. But the thing is that it's true for monetization as well. They come to the game, then we convert them to monetization. Then they are retained, they keep playing, and they keep paying. Good scenario for us. But then they churn, and we need to recycle them. We need to understand why they stop paying. Maybe they bought a premium subscription in a game for a month or for a year, and they just don't need to pay more during this year, right? What else can you propose them? So this is the cycle we use, and we have several approaches how to do this right. So reactive and proactive, super simple. Reactive, you just let your players tell you what they want, and you give it to them. Proactive, you define what your product means, you define how it should evolve, and you lead your players. You don't follow them. So reactive is safe, but you will be one step behind. Reactive is good if you assume that anybody can tell you what they want and that they really know that they want it, which is not true. Your players can tell you that you have bad physics in the game. The truth will be that your controls are bad, and this is why they cannot control the mech in a shooter game, for example. It's not a problem with the physics. If you will try fixing the physics, you will be doomed. Your players will never analyze your game for you. They're not game designers. They don't have this responsibility. They don't have this goal. They just tell you what they think is going on. Your job is to understand what really is going on. So reactive approach is risks-free. So if you have a lot of risks, if you're already scared as hell, use this. But please use this for a short period of time, because if you try to basically grow the product, to monetize the product, being reactive, it's not gonna fly. It's never gonna fly. You will be just following the audience. You will never compete with people like Fortnite. You will never compete with huge game makers. Not because you don't have enough money, not because you don't have an amazing team, just because your players and everybody likes to be told what to do. When we see, again, closing branding promotions, when we see any Apple presentation, we are angry because they're telling us what we're supposed to do with the iPhone, but then everybody does that, because this is how psychology works. The proactive approach, my favorite one. So again, the only way to be in charge of your product, and it doesn't mean not listening to players. Again, this means listening to them, but trying to find real decisions to satisfy them. It is risky, yes, and what you need to do is you need to build the trust. You need to do this inclusive product thing I was talking about before. You need to make sure that whenever your players say, I don't like the game, or change this, or this event was bad, or this system is not working, you're fixing that. But maybe not in a way your players want it from you, but in a way that makes them feel good. If you do this a couple of times, then you have the trust. Like, look at Blizzard. They have super loyal audience, right? They messed up, let's use this word, with Diablo during the auction, and they fixed it. And players were ready to wait for 2 years for them to fix that. Because, last point here, they acknowledged the mistake. You need to be fair with your players. We all are human. You as a company, you as a brand, you as a game designer, you as a creative director, as monetization director, we all are humans. So, again, if you mess up, go to your players, go to the community and tell them, okay, we messed up, we're gonna fix that, please give us time. This is the best thing to do because you don't have this corporate mask saying, oh no, everything is okay, you're supposed to like this game. No, 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 you're human. And acknowledging the mistakes is the only thing that can actually help you be proactive, because you will make mistakes. You will always make mistakes. Whatever design decision you're making before you test it, it can go wrong. You never can test it enough. So again, don't be a jerk, important. Respect your players, listen to your players, acknowledge the mistakes. What is the plan? So again, the player fantasy, you have that. And then imagine how your player fantasy should evolve. In a year, in half a year, in 3 years, depending again on the product cycle you have. Your plan is a detailed direction, and your plan needs to be honest about your needs. If you're being pushed by the management to earn money, well, your plan needs to reflect that. If you're not being pushed by the management, but you want to establish, again, a stable player base and stable base of paying users, your plan needs to reflect that. And your plan needs to reflect the risks. So what do you include? Update schedule, simple. Update guidelines, not simple enough. So what does it mean? How do you update the game? Do your players know when the update is happening? Is that connecting to the season? Is it happening randomly? Can your players play your game without updating that? Can your players know what will be changing during the update? Do you give them this information? My advice would be to give them this information, because update is a change. And it can be promoted. It can be a positive thing. You can say that every season we introduce something new in the game, which means that your players will look forward to it. You can have a beautiful trailer. You can introduce all the game modes you will be adding to the game next season. You can introduce all the beautiful maps. You want to change the economy? Okay, it is painful, but it's less painful when you tell your players about this, right? So, again, guidelines, feature plans, what you plan to add, this will change, but you need to have a plan, as I said. Risk management, budget and business model. What you do not include in the plan is detailed designs. You include planning doing these designs. For example, you have the feature plans, and you know that in half a year you need to introduce a new game mode. Okay, put this to the roadmap, remember about it when it's time to develop the game mode. Breaking the system, basically my favorite slide. So what you can break anything, as I said before. When you need to break that. So first point, everything is a tool and everything must have a goal. If you have a design decision, if you have a creative decision of scaling your product, and you know that the best thing to do that is to completely rebalance the economy or the meta game or just change the progression system, okay, do that. But make sure that players are ready. Tell them that yes, you're changing the economy, yes, you're changing the progression, but they will be compensated. That will be beneficial for them. Introduce that. That is a lot less stress than opening the game, you were playing for a year, and suddenly seeing that everything has changed. That is so stressful that most of your people playing the game will hate you and will never open this again. So again, you can change anything you want to change. It is scary, but if you're a game designer and somebody tells you that some system is super important for the game and you cannot change it, don't believe them, argue with them, you can change it if you want to, but make sure the players are ready. And how, again, you design, you know how to test the design, you mitigate the risk, and when you are not ready or when you're scared or you're not sure, A/B testing, or you can use events. If you're not sure about the game modes, make it an event game mode. It will fly, okay, it won't. Well, it was just an event. use whatever time frames, whatever like limited time things you can do to test your new designs and then integrate them to the gaming system. And this slide is for somebody or anybody who wants to have the presentation. They promised me that they will allow sharing the presentation. So if you want this, please request from organizers, whatever. This slide basically gives you the framework if you are lost in monetization. So we have acquisition model, free-to-play or pay-to-play, and then you go through all the pillars. You go to the system, you define how the game works, you see what you have built during the development stage, what is your player fantasy, what is the economy, what is the meta game, what are the motivations you can base your monetization on, whatever. Then you go to data, how you can test it, what are the risks, what are the cohorts possibly you will have in the game. Then you create the plan, all good. Whenever you feel lost, use this scheme, request the presentation. Now it's time for questions.
Thank you, Kate. Now it's time for questions, but two things. We had a talk about monetizations, but questions will be free.